Hey guys, this is Pary's podcast. Welcome to the show.
I'm so proud of you.
Thank you.
It's the best clap I've heard.
Yeah, I clap. You know what? That's thunder.
Hercules.
It was a very, very good clap. I respect that.
I'm telling you, man. Listen, I have 50 years of clapping practice.
What you be clapping on?
I've been clapping on stripper booties.
Mike's had the clap for 50
booties.
years.
I was just gonna say
50 years of the clap.
Listen. You should probably get that checked out.
You know what?
Yeah.
That would be a good name for a comedy CD. 10 years with the clap.
They've been clapping.
See, all I do is marketing. Just marketing.
You know that like comedy comes from like tragedy, right?
Yeah.
People because
I think that's what's beautiful about it.
I know. Like, have you ever heard like, oh, like you're a comedian, so you should be happy all the time?
Yes.
Or you are happy all the time.
Or that too. But like, I can't tell you how far that is from like because outside of this podcast, like when I'm writing, I'm like, oh, this is great. I'm just like.
Wait a minute. So hold on. You had tragedy, which is why you got into comedy.
Hell yeah! That's why everyone gets into comedy.
I see. What is tragedy?
I think that's how everybody gets into the thing they love.
Maybe.
I mean, there's a reason to support it.
But what is
that was the comedian voice.
Any comedian of like any famous comedian that you've heard of, they had a shit life growing up, horrible life growing up. Any comedian.
Robin Williams, like I mean, he struggled.
Richard Pryor, Dave Chappelle, Kevin Hart, Chris Rock.
Dave Chappelle's.
I mean,
Dave
Chappelle grew up in like poverty, bro.
Yeah, but see, I don't think that's tragedy.
But that's the
thing.
That's what makes the story like relatable in a way, right?
Well, yeah,
I understand,
and that's what you're saying. I think it's tragedy.
You can't gauge pain. It's like, well, I went through this, so if you go through it, it can't be that bad.
Well, that's true.
Well, they never went through it, so how would they know?
We just talked about that too. Yeah. Everyone's like experience is their thing.
I mean, listen, I had 13 brothers and sisters from my mother. My dad had 3 more on top of it, so there's 17 kids. We were dirt dog ass poor. I did not realize we were dirt poor until I had to go to the store with a booklet of food stamps. I didn't know. I just they looked like money. I just thought it was a different type of money. And my friend who lived close by, who's white, by the way, I have to preface that.
He wasn't poor?
No, he wasn't. And when he saw me at the store...
It's a twist to that story.
Yeah. When he saw me at the store, he goes, what are you doing? I was like, oh, my mother sent me down here to pick up some milk or whatever. And he goes, what are those? I was like, it's money, I guess. He's no, those are food stamps. I was like... I knew what food stamps were.
Like they were like a thing.
Right, as soon as I heard food stamps.
Associated with.
Right, and I was embarrassed by that. I remember I had to take paperwork to the what is that? The
police station.
No. The paperwork to get food stamps and coupons.
DHS.
There you go.
Health and Human Services.
There you go. So I had to take paperwork down for my mother, and she had to have this in. We had to have it in, otherwise we wouldn't get our food stamp and a WIC coupons.
Yeah.
I always call it coupons, but someone corrected me the other day. It's coupons. Okay, so
Cupid.
Yeah, well, it's my southern accent,
and
I was embarrassed to take it down there because I had to do it after school. And going after school, the building was right close to where I practiced football, so I knew there were going to be school buses going by there. I didn't want to have someone see me walk in that building, so I did like a circle around the building. Every time I saw a school bus, I ducked in the bushes and everything else. I turned the paperwork in, and then I left. That winter, my mother had to walk this paper through a snowstorm to turn it in so we could eat. And I felt like shit about how I was hiding and ducking and everything else. Like, this woman doesn't drive. She doesn't have a car. My brothers aren't around. Right. And I was a kid. I was a stupid kid. And she had to go and sacrifice for our family so we can eat.
That's why today you're hilarious, because you had some tragedy in your background and you use comedy as a coping mechanism.
No, I was just thinking, that was a tragedy. That was a tragedy for me. That was tragedy for my mama, because I'm like, ooh, she walked in the snow.
For you.
I had to walk in the fall. She walked in the snow.
The crazy thing is, though, I think you're totally right. A lot of comics talk about their own experiences. You really don't talk about bad, like, anything. I don't think I've ever heard, even like the Christmas thing, right?
Right.
But none of it's really about the experience of hardship.
No.
Like none of it. I don't.
Well,
think
other
I've
than
ever
like
heard
getting
of it
what
like
I
that.
want for Christmas
Right,
and stuff.
but not.
And
It's
I
not
talk a
that's
little
not-
bit about
that kind
my
of story is
daughter.
hard.
Yeah. I don't, and I think it's only because I've only been doing comedy for 7 years. I got
not
a
ready
lot of
yet?
stuff.
Yeah, but like you've been
There's a
suffering
lot of
since
stuff.
like day one.
Right.
Yeah, but I mean, this is stuff that just works and it's funny, and I want to get more into talking about my family growing up and talking about exes and my parents and all that other stuff. But I think because of I'm a very positive person, even though it was tough. I never thought of us being poor, because I had a friend named Juan growing up. He's still my friend, but Juan growing up, Puerto Rican, his father barely spoke English, his mother didn't speak any English, and he had a brother and 3 sisters. And it was rice and beans and chicken for them all the time. And I was like, they're poor. Well, they weren't. You know?
Here you are.
Right. I mean,
I can now imagine
Yeah.
the face you had when you realized you had food stamps in your hand
Right,
and you
I was
called
like-
the other friend poor.
Right, I was like, you guys are poor, as I, fanned my book
Yeah,
of
you make it
of
rain with your food
right.
stamps.
You know what I mean? I was like, what? We eat Jeff. We don't eat government peanut butter. But we did eat that government cheese. That government cheese is good shit. Good as shit.
I think it's funny that you can go into like places that have like pubs and stuff and you can ask for government cheese. Like,
Have you ever had it?
I know what it is. I never had
it's
it.
like a luxury now.
The U.S. government,
No.
the U.S. government hasn't done much right. with
But they
my
did
people.
government cheese
But they
right.
did government cheese perfect. I don't know what cows they use.
They're not really
Good.
cows.
And it comes in a block, like Velveeta, but it's firm. It's not all wobbly.
You're
Like
talking to an
what
Indian.
cheese is
I
supposed
know
to do,
cows.
it doesn't.
I know cows very well, my
Yeah.
friend. I can tell you. You got the cream of the crop.
I'm just
Yeah.
saying. Government
You,
funded
you got like
cows.
buffalo cheese.
Man, they did that
It
government
is.
cheese right.
Government cheese is good.
But you don't think that like people like the really good comedians they've all like lived awfully? Like you don't think that's a
No, I do think comedy comes from tragedy, but I also think about I saw an interview with Marlon Wayans, and he was talking about his life growing up. He's like, no, his life was perfect. His parents were there, they worked, the whole 9 yards. It's just their family had this work ethic where all of them were going to get on, and they all got on. Now they're into children and grandchildren who are getting on. So, yeah, I believe to a certain
They created an empire for themselves.
Right,
That was the
absolutely.
plan. It was purposeful. It seemed.
Absolutely.
you can have like a very disciplined lifestyle and you can like I think you can really do whatever you want to do like within like with like obvious limits. Like there's no way that I'm gonna go in the NBA. Like there's certain things that like there's no way, right? Like
I mean, you're saying you just don't have the characteristics to.
yeah, exactly. There's some things that you just there's like look at LeBron James, right? It's like, do you think I'm ever gonna like look like that? There's no way. No matter how much I work out, I'm never gonna
I mean,
like.
it's genetic.
There's certain things
There's
yeah.
things that are just
so,
genetic.
But when it comes
You'll
to like
never be a 6'9" black man.
when it comes to like
No,
comedy
you
though,
won't
like
be.
you can like work on like art and like your craft and like that has no age restriction, ethnic restriction, anything like that. However, you're not gonna like have you part of the reason there's not a lot of like Chinese and like Indian like comedians is because like the way that like we're disciplined as kids is like you go to school, you come home, you have tutoring, and you go back to school. Like to be a comedian, you have to live. Like you have to have a life.
Right, you have to have a life. Right. That's the first thing they tell you when you're a young comedian. I mean, young by age. Go get a life. Go live life, and then talk about it on stage. Which is why I'm glad I got into it when I got into it at 43. I've already lived a life. I've had a life. I guess you could looking back. That is some tragic shit.
Yeah.
And that's where
It's
your
some
comedy
good
comes.
material.
That's where your comedy comes
But
from.
you don't use it like that.
No,
You
because I'm a
don't.
happy dude. I want to produce happiness.
Well,
I think
mean,
it also
I-
comes with time and vulnerability, right? Like
Right,
you said,
true.
you haven't been
Right,
doing
true.
this long enough where it's like you can be completely open. I think a lot of like comedians like to me like Robin Williams, right? He never felt open enough to talk about those vulnerabilities, so he joked about a lot of other things.
Right.
Like you never heard him joke about his life,
Right.
like how he raised his kids, or like he kept it completely separate, right?
You can still be a happy like I think comedy is what you can take something that's tragic and make it funny.
Yeah.
Like
That's
that's
beautiful about it.
yeah, like that's what you're doing.
Right.
Like when I talk about like my life, I didn't have a like awful life growing up. I would never say that. Like I think like my mom did her best and she did a pretty good job. But like, there were certainly times
Yeah,
where it's like I'll go to like my friend's house, everything worked.
Right.
You know? And I was like, wait, how come ours doesn't like the broom in an immigrant household is a very versatile machine. Like you can use it for cleaning, for beating, for getting stuff on the shelf, off the shelf.
Yep.
Like the broom is all around. You know what I mean?
Snow removal on your car.
Yes,
everything,
it absolutely
everything.
is.
It's the poor people's Swiss Army knife.
Yes.
It truly is. And then you go to
Once it's broken, then it's a shard.
Yes,
It becomes,
but you tape it at least once. You gotta tape it at least once. When you have a good worked in broom, it's gonna break on the handle. You gotta use tape
my
once.
mother has cracked many a broom.
Yep.
She cracked over my brother Willie and I. Oh my God! And the thing
real
is,
discipline.
it was my job to sweep and mop the floors. So I'm sweeping with basically dust.
weapon of choice.
Right. Which is why I sit a lot because I got to relax these knees. I've had to sweep like that.
You swept like this, like you're like
Yeah, because it's only that
you're
tall.
like a witch,
she
like
breaks
with a
it-
cauldron.
Yeah, after she breaks it, it's like only that tall.
Have you ever done the thing where it's at the very bottom of the room, you cut the bottom so you can use it as a new one again?
Oh yeah.
See, that's immigrant stuff right there.
See, that's what I mean.
That's true immigrant stuff. The way you responded, you knew that didn't
Right,
really happen in your
right,
house,
like-
but in our house,
But see, that's the thing. What I mean, it's white people don't do that shit.
No.
They're like,
No.
let's buy a new broom. Immigrants are like, there's still some
No.
brushes down there. You can use that.
Right.
Get
Yes.
that going. Right? It's
or then you make it the outside broom. So when you buy a
Yes,
new inside
that's
broom, the
correct.
inside broom
Yeah,
becomes
that's
the
true.
outside broom. That's what you.
That's true.
That's what you sweep the deck with.
I should be
the
talking
front
about
porch.
this on stage.
Like-
Because that's my life.
Yeah.
in our trash, that's stuff that you can never use. Like in an immigrant trash can, it's this is no good to anybody.
No,
But
it's
another
been there
immigrant.
so long
Yeah.
Right.
that it's literally because garbage goes in it.
Right.
Who cares if it yours, right? It's manual now. We're gonna use it for another 3-4 years.
Yeah, I like the
because
trash
it still
can.
fulfills its purpose.
Yes.
That's so true.
Because all we need is a
That's
thing
an
to
immigrant
throw
shit.
stuff in. It's we don't need the electronic opening, whatever. It's
Right.
it still works.
But see, listen, the longer we're here, the easier we assimilate, right? Now it's we have one of those drawers that's got a recycling bin and a garbage bin. Now it's we understand there's an actual purpose, but we'll still keep those things forever. Forever.
But I think that's why. I mean, this might just be my personal opinion, but there's no in terms of white stand-up comedians. Who's the best one? I don't think that they're even top 5 of all time or top 10 maybe.
I mean, Carlin would be up there.
Yes, he absolutely would be up there. There's no question.
And I know, what's his name? Back in the 60s. Lenny Bruce.
Lenny Bruce started what we know as stand-up comedy today.
Right.
Yeah.
And that's why I don't
But then
think
does that make
him the best.
Does that make him-
best?
Right,
That's the
I
thing.
agree.
It's more
Does that
he's
make
like
him-
a founder, right?
No, right.
And he
Right.
represents the concept, but I mean the master
He's
treats better.
right. He introduced the Model T, but there have been Ferraris and
Right.
Lamborghinis and everything since then.
Yeah, but
So-
he started the Model T.
Right.
So
Right.
without
Right.
him, there wouldn't be this stuff.
Right.
But
So
on
someone
the same
to be
token is that it's
respected for sure.
how many times are you gonna get on stage and talk about weed and drinking and frat
Sex,
parties?
right.
Yeah,
And
and
all
sex.
girls,
It's
yeah.
who cares? It's do you have anything else in your life
Right.
to talk about? Where it's well,
Move it along, Dane Cook, or something like that. Not to
Yeah.
call
Well,
him out
because they
personally, but
no. But that's the thing is either they have a prop of some sort, right? Because it's just you can't associate with the cultural stuff, right?
Right.
So it's they've got to find some other way. My question is why aren't there more white comedians that talk about diversity and other cultures and their experiences with other cultures?
well,
It's
Bill
very-
Burr
it's-
does,
Bill-
but his wife
Right.
is black. What's
Oh,
his
so
name?
that's his I can get away with that card.
yeah, but
I
he
mean-
he doesn't talk about his wife very much. When he talks about his wife, he never says my black wife. He just says my wife.
But he
He
has
does,
jokes
but
that are
he-
associated with his experiences with the
Right.
black population. I'm
Well,
assuming.
what's his name? Gary Owens does. 100%.
See, I think
Yeah.
that's funny, and I think it allows other people to realize that look, there's a benefit to learning about people that don't look like us and that
Right.
are different.
Right. And it's not.
It gives you something to talk about.
A white man marrying a black woman is way more rare than the other way around. So,
Black guy plus basketball equals white girl.
well, or sport or entertain or fill in the blank. It doesn't matter. But my point is that there aren't very many black or white men marrying black women. So they are a minority
Within
with a minority.
right, and we know that women typically are the Like the people that surround a family are coming from the women's like perspective or the women's family or the so there was a thing I went to in college about interracial couples and why there's like this power struggle. This guy gets up and talks about it.
Wait, there's a power
So they say
struggle?
that you don't see a lot of like black men and black women, African American, African, doesn't matter, right? You don't see a lot of them marry. Like when they like marry, you don't see that balance of success typically because they say that it's either typically one of them is less educated or in a lower position socioeconomically or something, or vice versa. Because when they are at the same, the cultural makeup is to strive to survive, right? So when you have two minorities, right, who are equally educated, equally employed, their status is the same in society, they're constantly fighting against each other and the marriage typically doesn't succeed. So what you'll see typically the man or the woman, it doesn't matter, one is much more successful, much more stable than the other, and it's okay because there's no fight. So you'll see typically black women that are highly educated, established in life, independent, have all of these successes because they work their asses off. They'll marry. They won't find black men in that same level that could actually.
Yeah, but I don't
so
think
they'll marry another race so that it's easier to be married to someone of a different race that's at that same level.
But that's not race. That's class.
Well,
that's nothing to do with black people.
So they say that. So what this doctor was talking about is the fact that because the automatic mindset is to survive, because it's always been one spot. Right?
Yes.
So it's one spot for this person. So
I agree with
that whole racial population is constantly fighting for that one spot. So then when you're in these partnerships that are the same, you're both now fighting for that one spot. I think that's completely changed now.
Well,
but that's what it was. I mean, that was the study that he was doing.
Yeah.
Is that you wouldn't see it historically as much.
But it's like when you get like two doctors together. It's the same thing. It's like, well, I'm a neurologist. It's like, and you're just like a physician. Yeah. It has nothing to do with the race. It's just
But there's positions for female comedians and male comedians.
Why is it when women do comedy, it's always like dark or it's like overly sexual?
Because I think they're trying to hang with the boys.
Trying to be in the boys club, right?
Yeah, I do.
Why do you think the boys club is so cool that we'd be trying to get in there?
Well, because comedy is a male-dominated sport, and if they're not at that level of the men that they hang around, or they don't talk like the men that they hang around, they're not going to be considered. They're going to be pushed to the back.
Oh, so they're doing like extra raunchy material to get noticed amongst the guys.
I honestly, I do. I think so.
Yeah, but that concept of the boys club applies to every profession. So why is it so like we're not out there trying to take over
because the gatekeepers in comedy are men.
But most gatekeepers in every profession are men.
The woman that. One woman
Mitzi
that was
Shore.
I was just going to say she was like really the only one that you heard of, and she had her clubs, which is fine and cool and everything else, and she had a room club. She just recently passed away. It's Pauly Shore's mother. She has A clubs, A level clubs, but the problem is she's one in thousands of men who own clubs and
right, but she is the one. Like she has the most successful comedy club ever.
It's because she's a woman.
But now, she's gone.
Do you see what she did?
So
she didn't try to get into the boys club. She created her own club and she became the best at it.
That's true.
That's why I don't agree with that concept.
But here's the thing, though. She was one still in thousands.
Yeah. Right.
And now she's not here anymore.
Well, one of the things
someone should be taking over.
It just has to do with like interests. Like women in general don't want to do stand-up comedy. It's not like if someone tries to join, they're like, no, you're a woman, don't do it.
But
like,
I understand.
No one says that.
But I understand that. But even in their entry into comedy, they still should be allowed opportunities just as the men are. If they are funny, they shouldn't be offered opportunities just because they're female.
They are offered a lot of opportunities just because they're female.
Well, it depends on their material.
But then again, that's my whole point. That's my whole point. The ones that are super funny, look at the ones that are most popular. The Amy Schumer, Natasha Leggero.
Because they're real.
Amy Schumer's horrible.
She
steals jokes.
But hold on, wait a minute. Okay, that might be true. A lot of comedians steal jokes and steal joke ideas. My thing with Amy Schumer, the reason why I put her out there was Amy Schumer to me has the same arc and trajectory as Dane Cook. I did not find Dane Cook funny. I couldn't relate to his... He was, his
frat boy.
Right, his frat boy. That went off, didn't it?
Yeah, that's fine. Go on.
No, I didn't relate to his whole frat boy, I'm Dane Cook and there's all... It just didn't register with me. But women loved it because he was a good-looking guy.
Not all women.
Bros, not all women.
Certain women.
But a lot of them did for him to sell out Madison Square Garden for,
Right.
5 shows?
But see, I don't think his hype came from his stand-up comedy. His hype came from the movies and things that he was in that were much more mainstream.
Well, social media.
Because I didn't really know who Dan Cook was. And I mean, he came out during the beginning of times of social media, really, right? Mid times. But like, I didn't know who he was till I saw him. I didn't know he was a stand-up comedian when I saw him in movies, right? So that was my first exposure to him, and his humor was very much the American Pie kind of mentality, kind of humor. And I mean, he wasn't for me, right? One thing I would say about men and women in comedy is that women who are comedians, if you look back, they were always comedians. Like, even when they were kids, it was like they were funny. But I could look back at guys, men that are like comedians, and they were always other things. Like, they were either an athlete or they were identified by something else than just being funny.
True.
And women have, like, the ones that are good comedians. Like, I have someone that I actually went to high school with. She was a couple years ahead of me in my brother's grade, Catherine Ryan, but she goes by Catherine Bunn. She has a Netflix series. She's been that girl since high school. Like, she was saying that stuff, right? And she was funny that way her whole life. So when she's up there, I'm like, oh my God, this is just her being her. And it's hilarious, and it's inappropriate, and it's always sexually driven. She does that dick better than Christmas joke I told you about that, like, literally just feeds my soul. But she's always been that person. And then I have guys that I see, I know around, and they weren't as funny as they are now as stand-up comics their whole life. Like, they're figuring it out, and they had other identities. So I don't know. It's a little different.
I think the best example of what I'm saying is that that series or the show Marvelous Miss Maisel. Perfect example. Lenny Bruce was quote unquote her mentor. Now I don't know if Miss Maisel is a real person. I try to watch the show.
Is Miss Mabel or Miss Maisel?
Oh. Try to watch the show. Whatevs. It's okay. It's okay. But the whole point is the reason why she gained popularity was because her language and the content, and it was very much as Lenny Bruce did. Now you look at all of the female comedians in the history of comedy, the ones that killed it, murdered it, was top shelf, top of the line, traveling comedians, not comedic actresses, not, comedic, writers or whatever, like the Carol Burnett. Carol Burnett, I don't consider her a comedian. She's a comedic actress. Same thing with Will Ferrell. I don't consider him a comedian at all. He's a comedic actor.
I mean, he tried stand-up. He said he couldn't do it.
Well, but that's my whole point. That's my whole
He's
point.
good at improv.
Right. That's my whole point. Steve Carell.
Whose line is it anyway kind of guy.
Right. And there's nothing wrong with that. Steve Carell, he's a comedic actor. But if you look at, like, legit female comedians, Joan Rivers, Phyllis Diller,
So
Moms Mabley,
funny.
the lady that played Esther, LaWanda Page, all of these women. Betty White. To an extent.
She was like a blend.
Yeah.
She could do stand-up comedy, though. I
To
feel
an
like.
extent. But those females that I listed, they all spoke dirty. They all spoke taboo things at a time when, for women, it's just like, whoa.
They were honest.
True.
I mean, honestly, you look at those comedians and what they're telling is the truth behind the stuff that people wouldn't say out in the open. They were saying behind closed doors. They were just putting it out there from a female perspective.
True. And the comedians that are funny to this day, female comedians, they tend to be more dark, more dirty. That's just how they are. And there's nothing wrong with it. It's just that for me, because I'm old schoolish, to hear a woman talk like that, I just go, you don't have to do that.
For me, I just get bored of it. Like, how many times are you going to talk about your vagina and ex-boyfriends?
Okay, but conversely, think about men. How many times are you going to talk about your dick?
That's tragedy sometimes, right? Like, if tragedy is comedy, all those ex experiences, right? The people that you interact with, every tragic thing is they're spinning it to be funny, right? Like this whole, this concept that tragedy makes comedy. Our experiences as women may not relate to men, but they're still tragedies, right? Like,
and that's the reason why I will never say that a comedian is not funny. I'll say I don't relate to them. Now I know about Dan Cook. I said he wasn't funny
because you don't relate to him.
I meant that I don't relate to that broski type of lifestyle. To me, it's silliness.
Well, usually when you say they're not funny, like it's kind of implied that it's your opinion. Like,
Well, but people don't take it that way because if it's someone that they like, they lose their shit. Like, okay, Bill Cosby. Now, I tell people all the time, I don't give a shit. Bill Cosby to me is one of the greatest comedians. It's just factual. He's one of the greatest comedians and storytellers in the history of comedy. He has birthed he birthed Richard Pryor. Richard Pryor is the anti-Cosby. But when Richard Pryor started out, he mimicked Bill, he stole his act. He admitted it. But because there was already a Cosby, there was no room for a Pryor. Pryor then went and flipped his act to become the anti-Cosby. So they both had success on completely divergent paths. And there's nothing wrong with that. Sometimes that's what you have to do. He decided to talk about his comedy versus, being married and having a wife and the kids be doing this and that, as Bill Cosby was doing. You can't say that you're a Bill Cosby fan, even of his comedy, because people get so triggered by everything that he did in his personal life. And his personal life and his comedy life separates. There's between the comedian and the person are two completely different things. As a person, he's a dirtbag. As a comedian, he's one of the greatest ever. I choose to follow that path. Well, I have all of his CDs. Yeah. He's the greatest. He's one of my comedic heroes.
I don't really connect like someone's personal life with their art. Like for me, it's like a lot
of people do.
Yeah, but like that doesn't.
They're public figures. That's right.
Yeah, but it's like, would you stop listening to Chris Brown after the whole Rihanna thing? It's like, what does that have to do with his music?
My thing
How about
is,
this? Don't listen to Chris Brown, Pary.
Because music.
I don't know. I'm not saying I do. I'm just saying do you have to like relate everything that they do in their personal life to what they're like doing on stage?
Only because that they gain some kind of monetary. There's a monetary investment that they receive for what they do on stage, which then helps fund their personal life, and their personal life could be all kinds of fuckery.
Right.
Look at R. Kelly.
I'm not going to stop going to my doctor if he's like the best heart surgeon in the world. I'm not going to go to you because I don't agree that you have this personal fetish for dominatrix, right?
Right.
I'm not going to stop paying you and have my heart fall apart because it's like when you separate profession and personal. If you're not a public figure, we don't seem to give a shit.
I get that you're anti-Semitic, but
this is real important to me. I need you to fix this first, right?
I need my heart.
Right.
So it's like we don't do that with other professions, but we do it with public figures, and
Absolutely.
I think that's where people have to like. It's because I don't think it has to do with what the person's doing. It's the fact that we don't feel comfortable publicly supporting someone who we don't agree their actions with, right? But we're completely fine privately supporting someone that we don't agree with their actions. Like, think about it.
I didn't quit listening to Michael Jackson. Well, I lied. After that whole thing on HBO came out, the documentary about Neverland, Return to Neverland.
Yeah.
I quit listening to Michael Jackson for about 2 weeks until Tito came out.
You were part of that movement for 2 weeks.
Yeah, I was like, ooh, Michael Jackson's a horrible person. And then Tito came out and said, it's all lies. And then HBO took it off because they're like, yeah, some of this stuff wasn't true. I was like, man, y'all lying on my dude. Click.
But you would have gone bad anyways.
Come on, off the wall? Get the fuck out of here.
Because his art was great.
Yes.
He was good at his art.
Yes.
Doesn't mean he was a good person.
What happens when people get super good at their art forms? They just start like doing all this like weird shit, like the Bill Cosby, Michael Jackson. Like what?
Listen, Bill Cosby.
They were like the best of the best at their like ages. Like what in the world's going on there?
The thing with Bill Cosby that bothers me the most is he didn't have to do it. He was Bill Cosby. He was the first black person to have a regular primetime show. He got paid $1 million to perform in Vegas with no other comedian. It didn't matter what color you were getting those opportunities. Bill Cosby had no reason to drug women. To simply say that was the culture and that's what they were doing back then was stupid. He could have just walked in like Rick James. He could have been the original Rick James. I'm Bill Cosby, bitch.
Yep.
And then all of them would have come flocking to him. Why you gotta put stuff in your drink?
See, that's the thing though, is that you're assuming that just because he has status that women would just flock to him.
They did flock to him.
Right,
it's
but
not
the ones that
he
clearly wanted weren't flocking to him.
No. They were.
They were. He was just like, let me put a little something in your drink.
Well, that's the thing though. The biggest thing is there isn't a fact that these women would have agreed to all this stuff just because he's Bill Cosby.
Well,
And I mean, with like fame, we talked about tragedy and comedy, right? Fame, what we see on the surface is these are a lot of people who don't know how to handle that kind of fame, that kind of money, insecurities.
Well, you're taught to
Weinstein,
handle failure. You're not
right?
taught to handle success.
Well, and that's the thing, and that's exactly it. Is that if you don't have the tools to handle success, you're going to everything you reach for happiness. You're going to still have that flaw that you reevaluate. Like it's a power struggle.
I also think the game changes too. Once you get a certain level of success, you have done a lot of different things in your life. Now you're just like, okay, how can I turn it up a notch?
Mm-hmm.
I think a lot of these rappers that talk about how hard they are and all that, I think these guys are probably touched a penis or two in their lives, maybe licked one or two, or had theirs licked. I'm just saying. A lot of them do. I'm just saying. I'm just putting that out there. I'm causing when he said a lot of them do. I have no proof of this. I just think that once you get to a point where you've had a black woman, a white woman, Asian, and all that. You have multiple women. You want to kind of throw it out. I'm going to have a transgender
like a black
woman.
midget redhead.
Right. You start getting into some very specific, niche-y type of things. And you start adding to your dossier. It's like, oh, I had that. And I think that
it works the same with STDs. You just keep going looking for
you just keep
like, all right, now I know which one else is curable around here.
Honestly, I do. I think these guys live these wild lifestyles that their brain, or I don't know, their personal morality just goes out the window. It's like, I'll try it. Because it doesn't make me gay,
Who can Michael Jackson relate to?
But that's my whole thing, right?
Even now, not even
Old Town Road,
now.
the guy who did Old Town Road, right?
Billy Ray Cyrus?
No, not him, the rapper. We're not really on the country end of it right now, but that was good.
The other guy.
The rapper, right?
Lil Nas
X, right? Yeah. So like he assumed that everyone knew he was gay, right?
Wait,
so,
he's gay?
Yeah, that's the. I thought that was the story.
No, you had
right. So like when he came out with the song and everyone was like, "Oh my God, he's gay," he's like, "I assumed you all knew." Like. You know what I mean? So right there you can tell the culture is like within the culture.
Okay, wait. I don't care that he's gay. It's a good song. Like, I don't care what he does.
Let's not go overboard.
Like everybody was like making jokes and like making assumptions, and he's like, "Why are y'all making assumptions? I've told you. Like I thought you all knew, right?"
Did you not hear my song that called "I'm Way Gay for Dudes"?
But it's like like that. You can tell it's changing.
It's not fair to say, I thought you knew. How do you know unless he's walking down the street with jacking off two guys at the same time? Like,
that's not how it happened.
I'm in the studio writing this song called "Old Town."
I like that you went to Billy Ray.
Yeah, did you know
thought Billy Ray was gay?
What might really
gay for this money?
Yeah.
What might upset you is like Old Town Road is like the most highest grossing single of all time.
No, what upsets me is Old Town Road, he assumed that everybody knew that was a term in the gay world, that Old Town Road is really for your butthole. That's another name for your
butthole. Who told you that?
Wait, is it really?
Because now you've lost both generations.
Are you serious? That's a thing?
Is that coming from a... Oh, okay. I was like,
wait,
hold up. I didn't think it was that deep.
Shit, I played that song.
Now you're gonna listen to that. But you're gonna listen to that song differently now. You're like, wait a minute. He's talking about butt.
It's like when I tell the people like the Weeknd song. I told him it's about heroin.
Oh wait, my sister told me about that one.
Where he says, "I can't feel my face when I'm with you." It's
That's
heroin.
the one. That's the one.
Her is heroin.
Well, so is D'Angelo's Brown Sugar.
Right, but the thing is that everybody assumed it was a woman, but nobody really understood that he was going through a struggle. It was his way of expressing his struggle through addiction. Right? It's like, I can't feel my face when I'm with you, but I like it.
But
right?
I love it.
But I love it, right? It's like I come to you at 3 a.m. It's not about a booty call. It's about his love affair with this addiction problem, right?
Wow.
And so when you listen to the song now, you hear the song completely different. You evaluate the lyrics completely different, and the message is so much deeper.
But here's the thing, though. I don't listen to The Weeknd either.
That's a generational issue.
Like R. Kelly. He was my generation. I didn't listen to that guy.
I do.
Now, I could go back and say, look, as an empath,
mama rolling that body, got every man in here wishing, sipping on coke and rum. I'm like, so what? I'm drunk.
Won't you go in that bedroom with the rubber floor? It's got a drain for my pee-pee. Cause I'm gonna pee on your body. And I'm doing this shotty.
Ladies and gentlemen,
album. He's just dropping the single.
That's it. That's our time.
I'm gonna pee on you.
We're done. Just okay. Oh, please.
So bad.
Please don't take us off the internet.
We promise we're responsible.
Tell that camera where they can find you on social media.
You can find me if y'all want to come at me, bro. And I'm sorry, it's MikeGeeter.com. MikeGeeter. Or I'm on the Book of Faces as Mike Geeter. Or I'm on Instagram and Twitter as Mike Geeter, OMG. Just so you know. So you don't spell it wrong.
Mike Geeter.
Mike Geeter.
Oh, okay.
Mike Geeter.
That's a lot of places.
Mike Geeter.
And that's it. Thank you guys so much for watching. All right, peace.
This is gonna be the highest grossing one that you've ever done.
That's a lot of places that you're at.
Yes.
Right?
I'm at one place.
What's that? Facebook?
Instagram.
Instagram?
You can't come to my Facebook if I don't know you.
Get at me, bro.
Instagram is like the place that people who I don't know can go.
See,
and it's at no glass case.
Yeah.
You'll be learning things too.
Yeah.